Hello, penny pinchers, frivolous spenders, and everyone in between. This is Sarahdime video number 12, and it's not a requested video, but it's not an original topic. However, I have thought about this topic a lot in the last few years, and I happen to agree with pretty much everything that was shared by Rachel Cruz, who is the daughter of Dave Ramsey. She visited my church this weekend and shared some important financial nuggets of wisdom. And I would just say that if you're wondering why someone came and talked about money at church, it wasn't as basic as you might think, and it wasn't maybe as scheming as you might think. It was, you know, if you actually read through the Bible, money's talked about a lot by Jesus. It's an important subject. It's something that everyone has. I don't care how little or how much you have, but everyone has experience with money. And a lot of us, I think, have poor experiences with money. And if you know anything about Dave Ramsey and his family, they have a lot of biblical wisdom and just general wisdom about how to manage money and to get people out of debt. I mean, he is the person I would go to ask for money advice, and I want to share with you what the message on this weekend was at Central. If you're watching this and you went to Central, you probably heard it. But I'm going to just share some personal anecdotes as well. I'm just going to sum up kind of what her 5 points were this weekend about all this. And I think it's important to share because there are too many people in my life who I know have debt, or they are fearful of what their financial future looks like, or they are trying to make ends meet and they aren't meeting. I mean, and I have been there. And I'm not saying we're in a really great place financially, but we're in the best place that we have been our whole lives, my husband and I. So it's just too important not to share. So I figured I would. And I haven't done a video for a little while. It's probably been a week or two, maybe longer. So I figured I might as well relay the message in case you didn't see it at church. And I will link in the description the actual message from Central if you want to hear what she has to say, because you know what I can say in 5 or 10 minutes, you know, can be said differently and maybe more relatable to you in 40 minutes. Now, Rachel Cruz shared 5 points of healthy financial stewardship. I will share each point individually, explain them, and give examples best I can. But first, being a steward, by definition, means to manage or look after. Money isn't just relatable, it's prevalent in almost every area of our lives. I rely most of my financial management on the teaching of Dave Ramsey, and Rachel Cruz's daughter shared that when she was born, her family filed for bankruptcy. But for those of you who know his wisdom and his plans, you see that they flipped that around. And if someone who I esteem very highly for financial matters has experienced bankruptcy and probably every financial burden you can think of, aside from maybe poverty, you know, it gives us hope for those who maybe are in bankruptcy themselves or have debt or other financial problems. Now to the points. Point number 1, stop comparing yourself. It's easier said than done, but we compare our homes, our incomes, we compare how generous we are or aren't, we compare how many times friend A goes on vacations more than us, and so on. And if you find it difficult to stop comparing, Cruz says that what helps her is to start each day, not with emails and Facebook posts, but with saying or writing down a couple things you're thankful for. Practicing thankfulness leads to contentment, and when you are content, it eliminates comparison to others, or at least decreases it greatly. Number 2, steer clear of debt. Cruz shared only recently, it used to be that credit card debt was like the highest in America, or at least among my age group, but college loan debt is now surpassing that. So I can imagine that most of our world is not only experienced in debt, but we think it's normal. We think it's actually okay. We want to get that degree, so we're just going to get in debt for it, which sometimes is better for you. But I think there are ways that we could break the molds a little bit, and I'll try my best to share some tidbits. There's so much here, especially about debt itself, that I don't have time to share it in a 5 or 10 minute video, but I will do my best. Now, debt is just a regular thing for us, but you can have hope if you're in debt. Car debts and house debts are practically unavoidable, but if you can at least try to avoid car debts, you'll be amazed how free you'll be to save and spend more wisely. Heck, paying for a house in cash would be amazing too. A lot of us can't do that, and we need houses, and most of us really do need cars, at least one. I think I've shared them before, but I'll share some helpful links to getting out of debt from the Ramsey website. I'll be sharing a few things in the description, so make sure to check those out. Especially if you don't want to just hear me blab about this, look at these resources yourself. This can really help people. It'll likely be the quickest way out of debt if you go through these resources, the quickest way, and it surely will be the most surefire way that you'll finish this race. You'll actually get out of debt. A lot of people try as much as they can to get out of debt. Maybe they try to attack the biggest one first, which is, it seems logical, but usually they're still falling short and they end up just giving up. But anyway, Ramsey's way is maybe a little bit more backward from what we would naturally want to do, but it's helped so many people. I don't even know a story yet where people haven't gotten out of debt by using his methods. Maybe there are, but I haven't heard of them yet. Most times people give up paying debts before they're paid off, so this could be really helpful to you. Number 3, budget. But please don't be scared of this word. Most people associate budgeting with being limited in finances and or missing out on some of life's most precious experiences. But here's the thing. Budgeting is just a plan. It's a regular written plan that notes your income and where that income will go. And here's the key. Before you spend it. Not too long ago, my husband and I, we were keeping track of what we spent after the fact. And we really weren't that frivolous. We were very careful, but we weren't actually setting aside how much we would spend before we spent it. And I find that we are spending more reasonably now than before. We probably pushed it too much without knowing what our limits were, and I would go crazy because I really do want to know what limit not to pass on groceries, or if I need clothes one month. It's so helpful, and it's not as hard as we think. Credit cards are really tempting because you can buy things and promise to pay them later, but a lot of people rack up debt by not keeping to that promise. You think that you'll have enough, and maybe you miscalculated, or maybe you bought something that you maybe shouldn't have, and now you have less money than you thought 2 weeks ago. And you can use credit cards, but pay them off right away. Be honest. And if you don't pay them off, I would avoid them. I know you think it's impossible, but it is. I don't use credit cards. We're trying to look for a house, so basically I don't have credit. I don't have bad credit. I just don't really have credit, which makes finding a house a little more difficult in ways. And we can't buy a house and pay it off all at once. That's for sure. We're still in our 20s. We aren't from rich families, but we're still qualified to get a house because of my husband's credit. He had small debts before from credit cards, and he has paid them off. We don't have debt except for our car. That is the only debt that we have, which is such a relief. I could have had a lot of student loans. Now, the thing is Ramsey also talks about how to buy homes and how to avoid credit cards, and how it's actually a good thing. It might seem like it's not a good thing to not really have credit, but there's a way to not have credit and still be really great place financially. And he talks about that, so don't take my word for it. You don't have to listen to me blab on for 10 minutes about it. Please look at his site. It is so helpful, and there's too much to share in a short video, so just take a look at the website yourself. I want to say that even if you're a millionaire, you should budget. Budgeting isn't, by definition, having little money. Budgeting is telling your dollars where they're going. And I think if you're richer, it's even more important to budget. We have it so backward. I think that we need to know where our money's going, especially when we have a lot of it. Maybe we don't do that because we're scared that we'll be limited to enjoy life, but I think it's quite the opposite. I think you can budget for your fun money, what I call it. You know, going out to eat, or maybe just buying something shiny because I love it. I mean, you can, if you can pay for something like that and not sacrifice bills or paying off debt or something, you can still allot for, plan for that vacation. If you budget, it opens doors and you get to see things that you're paying for and you didn't realize you were paying for. I mean, you get to see what's actually debt and what's not. Anyway, I can go on and on, but I'm going to but I'll send a link in the description for the budget form that my husband and I use. Take a look at it. You'll see that it's pretty simple. And if you have any questions about it, then you can definitely contact me because I use it. I know inside and out what that form means. Number 4, save your money. Save like you mean it. That's how Rachel Cruz put it. When you get a paycheck, I hope you can save a portion aside. Why save it? Just a tiny, tiny bit. You can save it for your college fund or your children's college fund. You can save it for a vacation. You can save it for an emergency fund, which is highly recommended. I believe Ramsey suggests saving for at least 3 months of whatever you would need in 3 months emergency amounts. I think. I don't take my word for it. But whatever your family agrees with, something for when the car breaks down, for when your child gets sick and your insurance doesn't cover it all, things like that. You can't just hope that you'll have enough money because sometimes we won't. Sometimes things happen at the worst financial times. I know that paycheck to paycheck is very difficult, but even then, could you spare $1 for each check? Even less if you can't do that? Cruz puts it this way. Debt means you owe. Saving means you own. Putting away, especially when you have no debts, means you're saving for things like what I mentioned before, emergencies and for vacations and bigger things like that we usually can't pay for at once. My husband and I put away about $25 monthly, and we barely notice it going into our savings account. It's still our money. It's money coming in, but we put it away in our savings account, and we try not to touch it because there might be a day we really need that. Now, here's a toughie. Number 5. Give. Be generous. And no, you don't need to win the lottery to finally be generous. I have a desire, to win PCH money and to give like $1,000 away to someone. That would be amazing. I can't give $1,000 away, but I can still be generous. This begins with number 1, the not comparing. Yes, your rich friend can give $100 to your church and you can only give 10, but generosity is about the sacrifice. If you know anything about the Bible, you've heard the story about the woman who she gives away like 1 or 2 coins or whatever she has. And that to God was way more generous and holy to God than the people who were loudly showing off their many, many dollars that they were putting in. It is about the heart. And yes, you should budget how much you're giving away as well. Don't think that giving has to be like a spur of the moment thing. You can say, this is how much we're going to give away. We shouldn't go past that because then we might put our bills in jeopardy. And you should still. It doesn't make it any less generous just because you plan it out ahead of time. I know sometimes I had that misconception. I can't remember if this is Ramsey's rule too, but a standard is to save 10% of your income, give 10% of your income, and then to live on 80%, which, think about 80% of your income. I think that we could all do it. It might mean 1 less restaurant outing a month. It might mean a few less coffees. I think that we could do it. I think asking for 10% is generous on God's part because whether you believe this or not, I believe that 100% of what we have is God's already, so he's only asking for a tiny portion, and not for him, not because he's going bankrupt, but because he wants that money to go toward people who are in need. That 10% that you give, it can be to your church, or you can do 5% to your church, or 5% to the homeless man on the street. I don't think there's necessarily a hard and fast rule about that, but if you can't think of a place to give, I would give to your local church, because at least if you believe in what they're doing, if ministries are, ministries usually are run by volunteers, and they're not paid, and they couldn't afford it, so that money goes toward helping people through those ministries, so I would give there if you don't know where else to give. Giving a tithe, if you've heard that in church, literally is 10%, and that was considered obedient to God. And nowadays, I don't think you'll go to hell if you aren't giving 10%. Giving 10% is what my husband and I do, and again, we barely notice 10% of that leaving each month or each paycheck. We usually do that each paycheck. I've heard of powerful people who actually give 80 or 90% and live on 10%, or maybe they give 50%. I mean, it's really up to you and God, and what God wants is for you to be a cheerful giver. 2 Corinthians 9:7 says, each person should do as he has decided in his heart, not reluctantly or out of necessity, for God loves a cheerful giver. I'm not saying you have to jump up and down and clap when you put money in satchels, but it means that you have a peace about it. You're not saying, I hope this works out. I think that it takes practice to be a cheerful giver sometimes, because you're like, $20 kind of seems like a lot right now. I don't know if I want to put this in. This could have been what we used to eat lunch right after church today, and I really, really wanted to do that. Maybe we could do it still if I give this $20, and if we can't, can you have peace about it? It really does take time if you're not used to giving, but I've been tithing and giving offerings for, a few years, at least since high school, and I can't earn income and not give a part of it to the church anymore. I just can't. It's hard for me to not tithe. I literally have gotten so in the habit that I don't think it's guilt, but I just feel like it's not going as far as it could if I'm not giving. Forgive me if I'm talking a lot, but this is something that's really important to me. I think money being number 1 or 2 in marital divorces and just marital issues. I mean, I can't talk about this enough. This is what gets some people homeless. It gets some people, into depression. This is a topic that is so important. This is something that could make your life. I'm not preaching prosperity. If your church preaches prosperity, that is not the gospel. I'm not saying if you give to Jesus, you'll become rich. Although being rich is not a sin. Those are 2 very important points. But if you give and you save and you live off a certain amount and you're budgeting, if you're in control of this money, you are gonna not be able to, you're not gonna have to worry about it anymore. You're telling it where it's going, and after that month has passed, you see that it went where it went, and if you miscalculated, you readjust the next month. It just takes practice. And once you're in control and you stop comparing and you're just letting money work for you, you're going to be so much better off. You'll focus more on God if you do this the right way. This is just going to free you up to enjoy life and to help people more. These may just be 5 steps, but if you're like most people and you don't budget, save, or give, this can shock you. I understand. Growing up, I pinched pennies. My family didn't have a lot of money, but my parents, especially my dad, taught me to save money. And in adulthood, I have been taught how to be generous and to give. My husband and I practice these, and we can say we have no debt except for his vehicle, and we aren't living paycheck to paycheck. We know how much to give to our church, to our sponsored child through Food for the Hungry, and to Caleb Radio each month. Our dollars are stretched so far, and we are at peace by it all. God gives us plenty of food, and we aren't fearing eviction. Some of you have experienced some of these things, or you are now. Please just try these 5 things. In fact, try them in that order. You don't have to do it all at once. I think it could be overwhelming to attack all at once. But first, go to your heart and mind and tell them to stop worrying, to be themselves, and just live within your means. That means you're not spending more than you're making. In fact, if you can spend less than you're making, that would be ideal, because that would mean you're saving. Even if your neighbor's means are a lot more prosperous, once you're content with not comparing anymore, list your debts, smallest to largest, and knock them out one by one. Maybe you take up another job, or you sell some possessions, or you don't eat out so much. Whatever you can to become debt-free. If you're brave, start budgeting while you attack your debts. Budgeting literally makes things so much easier. Trust me, after a few bumpy tries anyway. And if you're married, I can't tell you how important it is to do, and to do it together. More often than not, one of you is kind of the bookkeeper and a little bit more, I wouldn't say stingy, but wise with saving your money and not overspending, and the other one tends to spend a little bit more easily, and maybe they break budgets more. And I think, despite what I would like to admit, I think that I am more of the free spirit compared to my husband. He'll walk into the store and he'll walk out only with what was on the list. Almost always, I'll walk out with more than what was on my list. So usually it helps to know which one is which. But either way, you both should be talking about this together. Deciding together what your limit should be. Letting the free spirit have her money to spend on that really sugary item that she's going to regret to eat later, or on the clothes that she wants to get just because she wants to feel pretty. You know, if you can afford it, plan for it before you go spending too much money. Again, start small. Cruz says, give a little until you can give a lot. You don't have to be rich to give and to be generous. You really don't. If you go to Starbucks and you're going to buy coffee, try buying the coffee for the person behind you as well. Again, if it's in your budget, you don't want to get in too much of a habit of giving, even if it's from a good place. Trust me, sometimes I want to give half our money away, but we probably would be evicted if I did that. If you're regularly giving financially, you know how wonderful that feels. Telling your money how to help someone and to put some away for your family too. I'm wrapping up, I promise. I know this is one of my longer ones. I'm almost done. Just imagine this little pretend story. It's very realistic though. Say someone is raising money to go on a mission trip or to save their sick child or something. Something like on GoFundMe. Something you've likely seen. I don't care the cost of what that would be right now. But what if every one of your Facebook friends just gave $1 once? $1 each. For me, I'd have over $1,000. I've got over 1,000 Facebook friends, and if every one of them donated $1, I'd have quite a bit of money for something important. I'm not saying to go set up a page to get $1,000 for no reason right now. Please don't. But if I were to actually post something in reality, probably only 10 or 15, maybe up to 50 people of my Facebook friends would give money, and they wouldn't probably just give $1. In fact, I think on GoFundMe you have to give at least $5, just saying. But, you know, if $1 from every one of your Facebook friends could grow into a number like that, imagine what you could do saving $1 every month, or $5, or $20, or $100, whatever you can do. Saving, giving, and living off of these things. Just imagine what that could do for your family. Take a look at the resources below in the description. I hope you stuck out through this whole video, because if you missed parts, if you skipped through, you might have missed something important. But if you want clarification, have questions, or have a video request, feel free to contact me. You can comment or message me privately, and I look forward to next time.